Good morning, guys. You're looking at images from yesterday afternoon through the overnight and into this morning. This is yesterday. Again, you'll watch the sunset, watch the storm split apart as it moves further south. It just couldn't take that pressure. And then early this morning, right here, this is where we're at currently. And what we saw was the storm was setting here yesterday. The models were showing it moving north through the lower coastal states here. What happened is it continued to push forward. Notice the pressure from these storms pushing down. It pushed so fast that the actual center of rotation, guys, was pushed out of the way and over to this area. Now it's rolling up the west coast of Florida in completely warmer waters. Check this out. So if you think about how Mother Nature works when she gets ready to change the planet and cool it off, in this case, what happened, and you think about, well, kind of a strange, and weather is strange, but as it pushed further south, it pushed it back into the Gulf. In other words, as we were watching it, and I was very concerned about the reports not being accurate, and they were saying that it was going to pull out here and then push along the border of the Gulf states. But it continued to push south, and then that pressure forced the center of circulation back to the left, close to, or to the right, and close to the Florida coast. So what we saw was, instead of a storm setting here and moving across, or moving north and northwest across the land, which would start to degrade the storm, this thing was pushed out. Now it has much more area, much warmer water, and more time to develop. Now they're looking at a 60% chance. Yesterday it was 30, moved to 40. Now it's 60% chance of tropical development in the area. But again, I guess nature has a perfect balance. We're seeing it really shrug much of the planet off its shoulders right now to rebalance the planet, guys. It goes much deeper than this storm that we're looking at now. But again, push south, started ripping it apart, and now the system is moving into a loop, basically. And that loop gave it the time that it needed to get more energy, have more time over water. And it's basically the same thing we were talking about yesterday, except the storm, looking at the pressure lines, was going to move down and then move across the Gulf this way and give it that time. But it was so fast in that push that, again, we had to spin out. But the same thing happened. Now the storm is basically setting out here much further south than where we saw it start, and it's got more time to develop. Guys, and now they've designated this from a 60 to an 80% chance of development. Setting right here, we're looking, again, 80% chance. It says an area of low pressure located over the northeastern Gulf of America continues to become better defined, and the associated shower and thunderstorm activity is gradually increasing. Continued gradual development is expected, and a tropical depression is likely to form later today or on Monday as the system moves slowly northward or northwestward. Interest along the northern Gulf Coast from Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. Let me put a / Texas in there, just be careful. They should monitor the progress of this system, as tropical storm watches or warnings could be required for portions of the area just later today. In addition, this system is expected to bring heavy rains to portions of the northern Gulf Coast during the next several days. Now they put out an Air Force reconnaissance plane, guys. It's a Hurricane Hunter. This aircraft is scheduled to investigate the low-pressure area later today. They want a little more sunrise on the subject, and they can see a lot better. Now, guys, they're calling it Invest 91L. I think it will become Bertha, if I'm not mistaken. I may be wrong, but I think it's a B storm. Now, we don't have an input from either the Canadian model or our Navy model at this point. What they are showing, though, is one model is coming up right along the Alabama and Mississippi line, right there, and dipping back down. See this? Back into the Gulf, and then kind of ending up right in here. That's as far as that model goes. Other models show it coming up, doing the same dive into the state line there, Mississippi and Alabama, moving over towards the Hattiesburg area, and then moving back up. I guess this would be kind of across Laurel, Mississippi, into southern Alabama. Other models take it right over New Orleans, right here. And then as I added in / Texas, this yellow line, guys, which is the HRWF, is moving through Louisiana, then dipping back out into the Gulf. And then we have this particular line here, which I think is the European model, staying in the Gulf and moving over towards Texas. Again, when they get this close, usually you don't see this much divergence in these particular spaghetti models, but things are a little different now. And like I said a few moments ago, they're a lot different across this planet. Things are changing at record speed, especially in the Arctic. And that is very dangerous because all of a sudden, in the last few weeks, we're seeing rapid ice melt. I've got the data on that, and I'll do a little bit longer video on it as we go through the day. But guys, again, this record ice melt that we're seeing is going to cause major global chaos. When you have both poles starting to warm, then you lose what's called the cryosphere of the planet. The poles are what keeps the balance. In other words, we're exposed to the sun, it's warm, but without those two air conditioners at the top and bottom of the planet will overheat. That's the way nature built the whole thing. But as they rapidly melt, and we've seen it in ages that have changed before, Earth changes, but right now it's moving at record-breaking speeds. I did a data breakdown on it yesterday. I'm going to share it with you today. As when those engines, those cryosphere cooling engines break down, what we see is major drought, major famine. Now, a lot of people will contribute this to man-made climate change. We do have a small percentage effect on the planet right now, but guys, we're dealing with solar maximum, and a very hot one at that. And I've pointed out that satellites have indicated that the other planets are heating up also. So you can't blame it all on man. We're seeing Atlas shrugged in real time right now. The Earth has become overpopulated, and it's like a timing cycle. You know, like the Earth knows when things are going to get out of whack, and it just does something about it. But let me show you something that happened in the late 1800s, and it was called the 19th century El Nino famines. That's what we're seeing now. Now, how does El Nino happen? The sun gets hot, heats the oceans, so on and so forth. Some people say that's not possible. Guys, how do you get a sunburn in 10 minutes? How does the water get hot? So that kind of throws that out of the argument, but I have seen it. They're saying the sun doesn't really do that much heating because we got the atmosphere and all that's nonsense. Anyway, the 19th century El Nino famines. In the late 1800s, a series of severe multi-year droughts struck India, China, and parts of Africa at the same time. We're seeing it now. It's the entire planet. The weather pattern stalled. And what happens, guys, this goes back to what I was saying. The engine is broke. All the vortices are out of whack. And when that happens, things just drift slowly. It's not real sustained upper level wind patterns as far as, you know, your jet stream and all of that gets all thrown out of whack. And when that happens, systems just move slowly. And a high pressure dome like we've been watching over Arizona and Colorado area, Utah, Vegas, that can sit over an area for weeks, and they're just become stalled systems. Now, that's what happened there. It says the raw historical records show that between 30 million and 50 million people perished from starvation and subsequent disease in the span of just a few years. They don't talk about that much, but guys, when we started this series looking at Lake Mead and the Colorado River system, we talked about 40 million people being displaced. And that situation is getting more dire by the day and as far as the Colorado River dam systems. But again, El Nino, 1800s, 30 to 50 million perished. And it happened just in a few years. The immediate impact and then disease from starvation and other things. But this is a cycle. But guys, I think we're into what maybe you would classify as a grand cycle, like a grand solar maximum or something like that, which could be part of this. But we now are going into a much longer and a much warmer drought situation than even in the 1800s. Now, this is why I'm so concerned, guys. You're looking at the North Pole, the Arctic, and this is sea ice. This area here is water, and you're starting to see some erosion in here. But this goes back 1 month. This is June the 18th of this year, right here. This is our ice layers. And this is not a model. This is actual satellite images that measure the temperature of the surface. And if you get into the blue areas, that's above freezing. Now, sea ice is not like regular water as far as the melting point at 32 degrees. With the salt content, it's around 28.1 degrees. So it takes less temperature to freeze the water that has salt in it. And that's what you're seeing out here. But this is, again, not a model. This is what the satellites were looking at 1 month ago, yesterday. Sea ice here. And you can see, again, intrusions. And this is very strong here, very strong waves pushing out up through the Russian rivers and pushing into the ice cap. Now let's move forward 2 weeks, not 2 years, not 2 months, 2 weeks. And that brings us up to the 9th of July. Again, a couple weeks ago, a couple weeks from the first image. You can see already, guys, these are massive, multi-square mile areas of broken sea ice. Again, this is not a model. It's not a glitch in the graph. This is temperatures. And you see the ice retreating from 2 weeks. Now let's go to yesterday. And this is 2 days ago, so we span 1 month time. Think about that. This was a solid ice sheet out into the perimeters. In 4 weeks, the temperatures have risen so much, and we watched that, guys. We saw it just a few weeks ago in a video showing the temperatures creeping up to Greenland and Iceland. But here, this is the Russian side of things here. The rivers are very warm. They're pouring into the sea here. That's pushing these waves, guys, up to about 7 or 8 feet. Now, when those waves at a warmer temperature than the ice slam into the ice and lap over it, it's like hitting a glass or sheet of glass with a hammer. It starts to shatter it. Then when you get to the actual ice walls that are a little higher, it's pounding it like a jackhammer. It's an extreme pressure, guys. Again, when you're dealing with 6 and 7 foot waves continuously pounding warmer salt water into the ice caps, it's unbalancing our cryosphere, both in the north and the south. Guys, remember we saw a 36 degree above normal in the Antarctic winter just a few months ago. And guys, again, when the cryosphere cracks, when it breaks, the earth is in chaos, and it's going to take a while for it to resettle. This is going to introduce fresh water into many of the oceans at the northern latitudes. That's going to bring in more problems. Again, we're going to be looking at drought, famine, big time. So just so that you understand the macro picture, we look at the micro sections, the hurricanes, the situation in the Colorado River, but the planet now is on a macro scale that is in every section of it. Things are changing, guys. This age is changing so fast. Look at what's happened in 1 month to the ice sheets. And in the video later today, I'm going to get in detail, show you where some of these currents are moving. Look at the temperatures, look at the damage that's happening. And when you lose our air conditioners, game is on. We're watching it, guys. You watch it. We're going to keep a close eye on this 80% chance of development in the Gulf of America, but we're watching the entire planet. Our Father loves you. We love you. It's a major heads up, guys. Be safe.